Hello, everybody. Welcome to Earth Origins 5. And we want to give a special welcome to the people on HowTube and live stream. We're probably going to have more people on live stream than in person. It's possible. We'll see. We've got people joining us from all over the world, if you can believe it. Israel, Australia, New Zealand, several places in Europe, like the UK, Germany, France, Italy, people from all over the U.S., from Missouri to Connecticut to California to right here in Arizona, even in Sedona and Clarkdale. There's a lot of people watching online, so welcome to all of you. There's literally more people with us than appear to be here with us presently. We have some really interesting speakers, and I wanted to give you a little bit of a breakdown of the Holy Grail because I think I started a bit of a firestorm with using the term the Holy Grail. Even a lot of people found it offensive and even, put off, like it was some sort of religious revival that we were going to be doing here tonight. But I'm here to tell you that this is really about clean energy, and cleaner energy than the green stuff that we have going on now. And I might be a little bit of a smart mouth putting it that way, but we really think we have a case for that. And there's going to be an inventor of this technology that will be joining us Saturday night on a panel of experts who are experts for decades on the legend of the Holy Grail. And as many of you may know who have studied the Holy Grail or have looked into it, you may be aware that it's more than one thing. And it seems like potentially it's probably a technology, a lost technology. And how Randall posed this theme of the Holy Grail is he used a quote from John Michel from the book 12 Tribes Nation, which says that this technology is a science that's designed to enchant the landscape. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty good to me. And the whole idea behind the Holy Grail is that this technology is able to recover the wasteland and bring in a new, archaic, primeval, original paradise that the landscape was designed to be. And so if that technology actually exists, I definitely want to know about it. And so we're hoping to present a case this weekend that the Grail technology is actually a clean energy. And not only that, you yourself are also the Grail. And it seems to me that if we could recover this knowledge, if we could recover the Grail, so to speak, that's supposedly what the Quest Grail is all about. If we recovered that, we would recover a technology that would totally change everything that we're looking at, because everybody's fighting over energy. Is that right? You can see it right now, and you can see that our day-to-day lives are affected by energy. And there are some groups of people who are monopolizing and controlling that energy. What if we could all utilize that energy ourselves? And what if all of these sacred sites and pyramids around the world are some kind of energy machine? That we shouldn't be suffering the way we are. And that's what I see when presenting this theme, the Holy Grail, for the weekend. And we're going to show some clips right now. I'm going to show a video about what Worldviews is and what we're about and why we're doing this event. Earth Origins came about from hosting Graham Hancock. And two things that Graham Hancock said in 2019 that really caught my attention. The first one was, we're facing great potential catastrophic events like we have in the past, and we're more than overdue. And Graham said that if we supported the Comet Research Group, which is all about tracking these catastrophic comets, meteorites that we're always passing through these fields, if we could defend the planet from that, that would be a great quest, I think. And then the second thing that Graham said that really caught my attention was that with LIDAR, they've discovered that the rainforest was cultivated. It just didn't pop up out of nowhere. It was cultivated by humanity. And so those two things were the reason why I chose the theme Earth Origins. Is because if we knew that we have this energy, if we knew that we had these alternatives, wouldn't we implement them? Wouldn't we pursue them? So I've seen a lot of mockery and, this is a big circus and we're just coming up with pie in the sky. Perhaps, but we're here to put it to the test. And that's the only way you can prove anything, is put it to the test. So these guys are going to be bringing you decades of research on the Holy Grail literature and the technology of it. And I'm super excited for what we have for the weekend. There's multi-disciplines. We have scientists that are going to talk about technology building up into Saturday evening, where we'll have the inventor of this technology that Randall's presenting, virtually presenting with us, with the panel that we have. He's going to be coming to us from the Maldives Island. And that will be Saturday night. That will be like the apex. And then Sunday, the speakers like William Henry and Carolyn Corey and Alberto Hagar, they're all talking about consciousness and that this is connected to consciousness. And Randall will tell you, and Randall will reveal this weekend, that the Grail technology, the Grail legends were not just a British or a Celtic legend, but there was a universal theme around the world. And if you look at the architecture in different places all over the world, you can see the synchronicity. So it's hard to deny, and it's hard to be in the seat of mockery. I'm excited for this weekend. Right now we're going to show you about 4 or 5 minutes of what Worldviews is about. And then we're going to show you a clip from the Grand Vision last year, so you can see what we've been up to and what the theme is. And then at the end of that, there's another 15 minutes of compilation of the different speakers that will present this weekend. So you'll get an overall overview of what you can anticipate over the weekend. So without further ado, we're going to cue the clips. After that, we're going to have Elias Arjan coming up to speak. He'll be our first speaker. He's a little bit different from the crowd of researchers that we have. He's researching in the field of longevity, which means well-being and the extension of life, and not just to grow old, but to grow young as you grow old. And it seems like the Templars, well, more than seems like. William Henry says that the Templars were obsessed with purifying the blood. So what does purification of the blood lead to? It leads to longer life. Because if you had clean blood, you will be able to regenerate yourself over and over again. And Randall will show this weekend that before the antediluvian age, before the floods, we have records all over the world of people living to be 200, 600, 800, 900, 1,000 years old. So has some technology been lost? Has some wisdom been lost? That's what we're here for this weekend. And I'm so grateful for all of you that joined us in person, because for the last 3 years, it's been extremely difficult to bring people together. And a lot of that is generated by fear. And I think we have to overcome that fear. So I thank you all for showing up in person, because that shows me that that didn't intimidate you, and you're here anyways. And I think it's so important that we come together and we share our collective energy, and we put our collective energy together, because that's where the power is. And if we can change things, if we can alter what we're looking at now, I'm all for it. I don't know about you. Anybody else? Woo! All right. Okay. We're going to cue the first clip, and it'll go for about 20 minutes. We've got 3 clips, so that's going to take us about 20 minutes up to when Elias will speak, and I'll be back up after that. Okay. Here we go. Okay, this question is for Graham. It's from Zyvor. I'm a Canadian and I've read America Before at least 5 times now. My question to you, Mr. Hancock, is what parts of Canada should archaeologists have an open mind to focus on, and also what can the public do to help in any way? P.S. You're my fucking hero.
Well, thank you, thank you very much for that kind, that kind remark. I really appreciate it. Look, Canada. The thing about Canada was it was largely covered with 2-mile deep ice caps during the Ice Age, and that tends to obscure a lot of information from Canada. And when those ice caps broke up, they carried in icebergs enormous rocks from Canada, which they then deposited, for example, all over the Channel Scablands. Those are glacial erratics. So I'm not confident that a great deal is going to be found in Canada itself, because Canada was massively covered with ice. What was the second part of the question? I'm his fucking hero. Okay, that wasn't a question. That was a statement. But I'm honored to be anybody's hero. I'm no hero. But there was another part to the question. What can the public do? Support the Comet Research Group. That is the fundamental thing. I've run appeals for the Comet Research Group before. As George mentioned, Alan West has personally funded a great deal of the Comet Research Group's work. There are no mainstream grants coming. These guys are doing incredibly important work, and they're being sidelined by the mainstream. The only way they're going to get that work done is with help from the public. And if there was a single practical outcome from this, it would be give a few dollars to the Comet Research Group. If enough people do that in the thousands and tens of thousands, then they're going to have the funding to do the further research that we all want to see happening.
That's exactly right. And just to give you some specific instructions, it is a 501c3, the Comet Research Group. So, and Alan was wise, and I sit as one of the directors, on the tax forums and whatnot. But at our Facebook page, right? Comet Research Group Facebook page, easy enough to find. There is a link to that. There's also one, I believe, at cometresearchgroup.com. Org. Thank you. And that's where you donate. And there actually money comes in, even though this is not a huge subject. It's been important, right, Alan? I mean, I don't want to give the level. It's certainly not what we need, but it comes in real handy.
The average reader, without a context of understanding of symbolism, could have a difficult time grappling with the varied ways that the Grail has been represented in these stories. What I'm trying to do, though, is to show that these are all different components of one system. I even use the word a machine or a technology that have to be integrated as a whole. And I got this great quote by one of the modern Grail scholars, John Michel, who really was the person, it was his writings, I think, that most inspired me to dive deep into the Grail tradition. Here's one quote by him. This is from the book 12 Tribe Nations and the Science of Enchanting the Landscape, written by John Michel and Christine Rohn. The legend of the Grail is the Celtic version, with particular application to Britain, of a universal theme concerning something which has vanished and must be found or invoked again for the redemption of life on earth. That really encapsulated what I think is the inner meaning of the Grail tradition. I look at it this way. I think it represents a great secret, which has lain hidden now for almost 800 years Now it's time for the Grail to reveal itself. And I hope that we can do a little bit of that, peeling back the veil, to pierce the veil a little bit and see what's been hiding behind the veil.
I think it's such a great topic, the Grail, to be talking about with Randall, Brian, people that have this kind of alternative history perspective, because the Grail has such a long and rich history. I first started studying it in 1982, so that's 40 years ago. And
Wow.
I mean, I still couldn't tell you I know exactly what the Grail is. In fact, nobody can. It's often thought of as having at least 4 different aspects or interpretations on what it is. Some think it's a cup that was present at the Last Supper when Jesus gathered the disciples together on the eve of the crucifixion. And his intention with the Grail and at this Last Supper is to empower the disciples to activate their latent healing capabilities, because he's going to send them out then to heal the sick, raise the dead, preach the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And so the Grail seems to have been a part of that transmission, if you will, that he imparted to the disciples. And the idea is that this cup, the Grail, which, by the way, does not appear in the Bible. This is all Christian legend, Christian symbolism, but it's a very important part of it, in fact. But the idea is that this cup is present at the Last Supper. Then it turns up at the crucifixion, either in the hands of Joseph of Arimathea, who is Jesus's wealthy uncle, financier, part of the Sanhedrin, Essene mystic, and a whole lot more. So it's either in the hand of Joseph of Arimathea or it's in the hand of Mary Magdalene, who is Jesus's chief apostle, acknowledged by Christianity as such. Some believe his companion, his wife, mother of his children. One or the other, Joseph or Mary, at the crucifixion, reaches up and catches the transmuted blood and water spurting from Jesus's body. A Roman centurion had pierced his side. This blood is spurting from that open wound, and they catch a blood sample with this cup. So it's a blood sample that they've now got in this Grail cup. It's a blood sample, it's a DNA sample. This is very important because at this moment, Jesus has already begun the process of transfiguration. His resurrection and ascension is already underway while still on the cross. So that's why it's very important to get this blood sample. And after the crucifixion, this cup with the DNA blood sample disappears. It goes to southern France with Mary Magdalene, if you believe that story, or it goes to Glastonbury in England with Joseph, the site of the first Christian church that was founded by Joseph of Arimathea. In both locations, southern France, southwestern England, have centuries of history, legend, mythology that says the Grail was indeed brought to those sites. And at each of those locations, you're introduced to the idea that the Grail isn't actually a cup or a blood sample, it's a bloodline. Both the British and the French royalty trace their origins to the Holy Family, to Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and their offspring, because in this perspective, they believe that Jesus and Mary Magdalene had children, and their children carried on the Grail bloodline. This is, of course, the Da Vinci Code material that Dan Brown wrote so well about and so popularly as well. But there's a third take on what the Grail is, and that is that the Grail is not a cup, it's not a bloodline, it's in fact a stone. In the 13th century, a German poet named Wolfgang von Aschenbach introduced the idea that the Grail is a stone that fell from heaven. And not just any stone, it's a wish-fulfilling gem. If you have this Grail stone, you can turn a wasteland into a garden. You can transmute one thing into another, leading some researchers to equate it with the emerald tablet of Hermes. The stone of transmutation spoken of in the emerald tablet and the Grail seem to be pretty resonant with one another. And I think there's a case to be made for that, because most certainly Jesus and the disciples would have been interested in the subject of transmutation. Jesus demonstrated this. He performed miracles where he transmuted one thing into another. He multiplied loaves and fishes. He raised the dead. He performed other miracles of transmutation. You're going to come away from this event with not only a greater understanding about what the Grail is, but about yourself as well, with tools and ideas that you can use to actually start on this process of activating your own inner Grail. And that's really exciting. And so it's an invitation to explore wonderful myths and legends, but also to unlock deep aspects of yourself as well.
From the Epic of Gilgamesh to the Old Testament to research labs and institutions around the world today, humans have been on a quest for immortality. My name is Eli Serjan, and I'm a researcher, an analyst, and a speaker on longevity, health span, and wellness. I've been invited to come and share what is going on in the world of longevity right now. There's things that are happening that are potentially going to make humans able to extend their lifespan. Some people say indefinitely. Aging is a disease that we can cure. And what are the implications for all of us as human beings as we enter this new post-human era? Because this also means that humans are going to start to merge with technology. And if this sounds outlandish to you, keep in mind that in 2023, the Neuralink, Elon Musk's company, is looking to get FDA clearance to start clinical trials. So there will be people walking around with those cell phones that we have in our hands implanted essentially into our brain. We're not quite there yet, but obviously that is where this could go. And I'm coming to share what is possible, the ethical, moral, and social implications of all of this. And then also, what are the positive strategies that we can use to improve our own health and optimize our own health span? So I'm really excited to meet all of you and share the work that we do in our industry and some of the great companies that I have the pleasure of working with and some of the personal research I've done on myself as a citizen scientist to change my biological age so that I'm right now almost 10 years younger than my chronological age. So please join me in my talk and I can share all of that I've learned with you, and I very much look forward to it.
Powers and civilizations and the catastrophes and cataclysms. And a lot of people just don't understand what that means. The time scales, the advanced civilizations. And
Right.
I think what I'm bringing with this science is another kind of artifact in the form of a science that's 32,000 years old, but it's a fully blown out axiomatic unified field theory that explains all conundrums in physics today. So it really makes you think and puts a kind of a strong foundation under things that may be less provable from an artifact. You know, how did they get these stones to mate up so precisely? You know, well, if you understand the nature's wheel work, you understand acoustics and resonance, you kind of melt stone and transform it, then things start to fall into place. Well, maybe that, you know, actually did happen and people knew how to do that. So I think hopefully it adds to the story that we're all trying to tell. You could go back and look at any of the technologies, the Teslas, or the Cooks, or the Atoms, and the Keeleys. You now have another, let's call it glasses, that allow you to focus on explaining what's going on. When a tinkerer or a Tesla invented something, it was more intuitively done, and they couldn't always explain it. But now all of that can be explained, including some of the remote viewing and some of those technologies too. They all now have a basis in reality. So it's very exciting. But if you think about what that means in terms of changing or upsetting the apple cart, it's the #1 national security, for example, that kind of power and propulsion. And so there's a big push to suppress it. And so if everybody knew that science, then that would kind of unwind a lot of things that people would rather have just remain the status quo. So Malcolm Bendall's technology, for example, or Schauberger's technology, all those now have a basis in solid physics that's explainable. So it's a very powerful tool, I think. I think what you said right at the beginning is important, is that there's kind of a convergence here. And to me, what's important about what you're doing with Malcolm Bendall, what Stephen Greer's doing with his the lost century technology, what I'm doing, bring the science out, is that there's a healthy discussion out there that can't be just dismissed as craziness. There's something there. Whenever you hear anybody talk about it, the proof is in the pudding. So getting the real technology is important. But there's been examples, hundreds of examples over history of people coming up with this. And I think the important thing that's going to happen in 2023 is that there's going to be a public discussion of this kind of technology and these kind of sciences. And so the good news is, when you ask about frequencies, is that nature has one law of interaction, and that law of interaction is scale invariant. So with my deck, I'll explain, and the Sedona Earth Origins is how that works. And that's the first example that I break down. And I think that we can get the message out there, and I think we can state it clearly. And it's extremely exciting, the fact that we can put those threads together, both the threads back in time and history, the fact that civilizations were interrupted and there were very advanced knowledge that miraculously has survived, and that we did know how to do things in the past much more advanced than we're doing them now, and that people need to kind of open their minds and their aperture of what they're thinking about, what the art of the possible actually is. And it's very exciting. And so I'm really looking forward to 2023. I think it's going to be a good year.
Hello, everybody. My name is Scott Wolter, and I'm very excited to tell you that I'm going to be speaking at the Earth Origins 5 conference in Camp Verde, Arizona, coming up on April 21st to the 23rd. And some of the other speakers that are going to be there are my good friend Randall Carlson, William Henry, Carolyn Corey, and a newcomer and rising star, Haley Ramsey. I'm going to be speaking about what else but the Knights Templar in America prior to Christopher Columbus, long before Chris. And I'm going to be talking about what their mission was and what role did the Templars play in the founding of America. They played a very prominent role, a very central role. And what we're going to do is share with you the 3 pillars of our research. The first is going to be past research that we've done and published in a number of books about things like the Kensington Runestone, the Newport Tower, the Spirit Pond Runestones, and many other controversial artifacts that have been found in North America that scholars say are all hoaxes, but they're not. I'm also going to talk about something called the Sinclair Weems Journals, which are controversial documents that tell us the details about what the Templars were up to for about 400 years. And of course, the Cremona document, which is another sacred document that is filled with information that you are going to love. I'm looking forward to being out there with my friends and with you. So sign up and let's have a great time.
Am I on? Okay, I'm on. How did you guys like that? What do you think? All right. So that gives you a little bit of overview what you're going to anticipate to hear this weekend. I think you agree with me that these guys got some cutting edge ideas, and I'm really looking forward to it myself. A couple of announcements. We'll have a dawn patrol with a Swiss military troop carrier. You may have seen it when you came in out there, 7:30 to 9:30 tomorrow morning, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. They'll have a road trip over to Montezuma's Castle. Several people have already signed up, so if you wanted to join that, you can do that on the website. Or you can just be there at 7:15 right outside the door here, and they'll book you in as you come in. But there's only 8 slots, so yeah, if you wanted to check that out in the mornings, that's going on. Was there some other announcement that I was supposed to make, Darren? I'm trying to think. No? You're not thinking of it either? Does anybody have any questions about the weekend? Go ahead. Tomorrow it starts at 9 a.m. We're going to have Brian Forrester virtually speaking from Peru. He was supposed to be here with us in person, but he had a trip to Egypt that he's just returned from, and he couldn't make it work to get here. So he'll be virtually speaking at 9 a.m. The Dawn Patrol will get back just about 9 a.m. So if you were worried about that, that first speaker is going to be recorded. And all of this is going to be recorded. All of you will be able to review this and have a video on demand after the event. So if you wanted to sleep in for the virtual speaker, it's recorded. And that will happen both Saturday and Sunday morning.
If there are any questions, people need to come up to this mic so we can hear it on the live stream.
Okay. Yeah. Does anybody have any more questions? Does anybody have any answers? No questions? No questions? Going once? Okay. You're questioning all the way. You're questioning everything is what you're saying. Yeah, okay. I do too. So tonight after the event from 10:30 to 1 a.m., we're going to have a meet and greet and hang out with the authors. So before, when we've had it at hotels in Sedona, we would have to shut down around 10 o'clock. Not here. We're going to be able to stay here till 1 a.m. and enjoy each other's company and enjoy the evening, both tonight and tomorrow night. Yes. Yeah. Let me see. There's a couple of changes in the itinerary. I hope nobody gets upset. William Henry is going to be speaking at 10 a.m. instead of later in the afternoon because he's had a change in schedule, so he has to get back to Nashville. He was supposed to cap off the weekend for us and speak Sunday night. So for those who are wanting to really catch William Henry, he'll be speaking Sunday morning at 10 a.m. One other change, Haley. I moved George. We brought George Howard in, so I have you up first tomorrow morning. I don't know if you're prepared for that. What's that? Okay. 10 a.m. Yeah. 9 a.m., Brian Forrester. 10 a.m., Haley will be speaking. Then we're going to have, I believe it's Dan Rogers and George Howard and then Scott Walter. And then we're having the panel with the guys up here talking about the Holy Grail with Malcolm Bendall joining us from the Maldives Islands. Yes, Scott? You have some answers?
I have some answers.
Okay.
They may not be right, but they're answers. No, what I wanted to say was I would encourage people, make sure you come to that 10 a.m. lecture of Haley's because she's got some amazing research that she's going to present that's in her book that she just published about a month ago. But she's also going to be talking about some things that I'm going to pick up on later on tomorrow night. So if you want to get the full experience with the Templars, the goddess, and everything else that we're going to present, definitely make that 10 o'clock lecture. And I also just want to tell people that I just gave that little diatribe about the 3 pillars. I've actually changed the lecture a little bit, and I'm going to drill right into what the Grail is and how the Templars were the guardians of the Grail. And try to answer that burning question, what is it? So I'll have an answer, whether it's right or not, I don't know.
I think I would like to turn in a video talking about what I'll be presenting over. So I wanted to go ahead and mention that I'll be talking a lot about the history of the sacred feminine. I'll go into some ancient Vedic scripts that allude to the fact that the cosmos itself is feminine. And I'm going to talk about a theory I propose in my book called the cosmic womb theory. So I'm going to deep dive into the goddess and her origins, and then I'm going to tie it up with mystery traditions such as death and resurrection stories in Egypt, within secret societies today, and then bring it full circle to where is the Grail and where can it be found now.
And tell us, Haley, tell us the name of your new book again. And she's going to be having an official book release here this weekend. She has a new book out. She's only 23, is that correct? She's only 23. She's all of 23, and she's already an author. We're very proud of her. We're grateful for the feminine energy to be here with us. I just want to say personally from my own, and I know the men in this crowd too, appreciate all you women, and we appreciate the feminine energy. Thank you very much. Yeah. Where would we be without you? Why would we be here if you weren't here?
The book is called The Bringer of Life, A Cosmic History of the Divine Feminine. And my background initially was in archaeology, but unfortunately the world of academia is not quite welcoming to new ideas and the tough questions that we like to ask. So now I'm going down a bit of a different path, but sharing all this information with everybody who's prepared and ready to hear it. So, thank you. I'm so looking forward to being here this weekend with you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Haley. Yeah, it's going to be very special tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Haley's, because it's going to be a unique release of her book. It's published by David Hatcher Childress, Unlimited Adventures. And by the way, David Hatcher Childress lives really close by. And so we're thinking about doing a tour to his house. Is anybody interested? Okay, we won't do that. So yeah, that's what's going on tomorrow, and again Saturday night from 10:30 to 1:30 a.m. we'll have another gathering. Anybody's welcome to join the after party, so you're welcome to invite your friends. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sanaz Abravani. She's one of our live stream correspondents and has worked with us before. She has a couple of retreat centers in California, and she's actually working with Elias Arjan. So I'm going to invite her up here to introduce Elias. Pay close attention to what Elias is saying, because it may sound far-fetched to us, dis-ease, but that's all it is dis-ease. And we can remedy that. So without further ado, please come up and introduce Elias Sanaz.